Episode 22, you and I talked about coronavirus. I think it was March or something. It was right at the beginning.
It was back when coronavirus was a new thing.
It was a new thing. Masks were, I don't know if you and I were wearing masks. You know, you at some point had the old couple in a grocery store thank you for wearing a mask, and you felt convicted just out of respect. And I think I started. So this was right at the beginning. And admittedly, it was episode 22. We kind of poked fun at some of it, like, okay, it feels overblown, but folks, here's some things that you can do. Well, now, as of this recording today is, this will publish at the end of November 2020, and it's as big a deal as ever. Apparently, you know, it's always hard to know exactly. CNN put out a thing yesterday, and was it media hype or was it literal? They showed stats, and it showed a dramatic amount of people, you know, more so dying from coronavirus than from the flu. Did you see that?
I have not.
It was significant. I can pull it up here in a second, but it was a significant amount, and that matters. I mean, you know, but we have people out here, regardless of what you think about it. You mentioned, I don't want to talk about masks. Well, that's irrelevant to the actual health and wellness. That's just a government mandate, regulations, store things. At this point, right or wrong, I think you got to do. You got to honor the home you're in, and if it's a business that says mask required, you got to wear them.
Right, and that's, I think today we don't want to get into the debate of is it worth the amount of good that it does, or is it causing too much of a problem on the other side with people who can't wear it? And you and I had said, let's not get into that debate because we're not going to get to an answer, and we're going to obey whatever rule that we have to. You got to obey the house rules. Okay, but here's where it's hitting home, and this will publish next week. But I just got off the phone with my sister, who is saying, what are we doing for Thanksgiving? Because her son a week ago was positive.
Oh.
So he's still in quarantine.
Okay.
And our parents are late 70s, pretty well, but do we risk it? And so we go round and round and round and round, and ultimately you wind up, and my sister said it right. She said, if I conclude this way, I feel stupid. But if I conclude the other way, I feel stupid.
You don't want to be guilty that grandma got coronavirus.
That's exactly right.
So our I think Terry's parents were going to come, and I think now they're not. I think that they're going to not come. And there's our video. Anyways, okay, but the big, if we look at that again, there's all the cultural stuff, and who are you and I to comment on? I feel as ignorant about it out there to some degree, but we can land on, for those who are out here, and maybe this reiterates a little bit about what we talked about in the original one, but what can you do to best safeguard yourself? And yeah, here are the numbers that apparently in a relevant time, we've got flu killing 42,000 people, COVID-19 killing 250,000 people. If that's true, I mean, that is significant. Now back with flu, I'm almost 50 years old. I've never gotten a flu shot. I've never had one thought about the flu. I've gotten sick very rarely, hopefully thanks to my lifestyle and maybe some good genetics or whatever. And if I did get sick, you got it and you got past it. I think my wife and I had COVID-19. It was very different. It was 10 days. It was fever on and off. I've never experienced anything like it in my life. It wasn't deathly to us, but I wasn't loving it. And we got over it. And right now I'm thinking about, okay, if it's really rampant out there, it's floating through the airwaves, then what can I do to best give my body the chance to not get it? So if you got COVID right now, we are not social distancing. We're about 1.5 feet from each other, and you're breathing COVID on me right now. What can I do to keep myself from getting it from you? And if I do get it, what can I do to give myself the best chance to fight it off and not die?
Yeah.
Or for me, I would not think, am I really going to die?
No, it's just to
not
die, but not to miss work for 2 weeks.
Yeah, go to the hospital. But yeah, actually not be productive. It just feel miserable. What can I do? So again, regardless of where you are, and we got people listening, we're going to figure that by proxy that they're listening to the show that they are a weller person, but we may have somebody who is high risk. Most definitely, everybody listening knows people who are at high risk, like parents who may or may not be coming for Thanksgiving. So if we hit it on those points on an immunity standpoint of top tier.
Right, the bottom line or the top line things that you can do or think about or just be leaning into to give yourself the best chance of not getting any illness, but especially COVID. And if you do get an illness, how do you shorten the time frame and shorten the consequences? Because that's another thing with COVID-19 is now that, data is getting collected, we're seeing, oh yeah, there's a subset of people who carry with it, long-term. Well, it can't be long-term yet, but the idea that there's going to be a long-term lung consequence or kidney consequence or just consequence.
Okay.
And so those are the two ideas that we want to highlight today. And of course, this is going to be a little bit of a reiteration to what we say all the time, because that's our stance is I also don't want to get a heart attack or a stroke or dementia, or I don't want my knees to hurt when I go outside and walk up a hill. All of these are, well, what's the resiliency that you have? And if you do get ill, what's your bounce back ability? What's your capability to bounce back and then go back to a lifestyle of resilience and capacity and accomplishing thing, whether it's with your mind or with your body?
Well, let's talk about it from an acute standpoint, because, okay, so you are hopefully, and to some degree, doing the things every day, living your life, making the choices in a way that every day you are doing the best thing that you can to guard yourself from getting COVID, or if you do get it, to fight it off. But if you were told right now, Dr. James, we need you, it's emergency. We need an emergency doctor right now to come over here and treat 2 patients. They both had COVID. You are going to get exposed, and you knew you were going to 3 days from now. I'm making this up, but what are the things that you would do to bolster your immunity the best you can? If that's a fair question, and you're smiling, maybe it's not. But I also want to ask, and what are the things you would absolutely not do that you might otherwise?
It's a good scenario question. Okay. This is a good role play because that actually has happened. Marcy had the opportunity, so the traveling nurse idea. So let's just say New York City, or now it's going to be in the Midwest, so Denver gets hit, and they're like, we need some help. And we could go be a traveling doctor, nurse, and we're going to go there for 2 weeks. And every day we're going to do 12-hour shifts in the hospital. And what would I do to bolster?
Let's start with that.
Yeah. So, and in fact, okay, here's another little caveat thing. I read an article in the JAMA of a guy who is a hospitalist.
You mentioned stuff people don't know. Marcy's your wife, and JAMA is the Journal
of the American Medical Association.
Right.
So
it's things that doctors read, only doctors.
Well, right. And he was making that comment about being in these modes of, it's almost like frontline in a war, like you're in the foxhole, you're out there in Afghanistan or whatever. It's such a different existence. So, and even if I was going to Afghanistan, it would be the same kind of thing. Okay, I want to bolster myself. How do you do that? And we do that in the military. You go get in shape. You train for the environment that you're going to be in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're now in it. We are in a global pandemic of this unseeable enemy that is attacking us.
It is a good thought, though, again, to look at 3 days ahead. If we were all told, because a lot of people are staying at home, they're not going to go out, they're not going to be exposed. They've done everything safeguards. But if you had to go out 3 days from now and be exposed, what would you do? Something you said made me think about a car trip, just basic things. If I have to, I drove one time from Nashville, Tennessee to San Francisco nonstop with my brother. It took us 36 hours. And we did coffee. That's one of the things that we did to help bolster our awareness. We did not do wine. Would have made us sleepier and tipsy. I mean, you just, again, different things than if we were at home. I'd have done either with no thought. So again, this acute aspect of, okay, so what are you going to do? Traveling nurse, traveling doc, you're going to go in there. What are some key things you're going to do to super bolster acutely your immunity? Is that even a fair statement?
Yeah, if you use the phrase,
what is your
boost your immunity? And I scoffed at that phrase last year, but I don't anymore, because I would say, no, we know you can boost your immunity. Now that phrase, I think, actually, I haven't shared this with you, but I think that got me in trouble with Facebook, with doing ads, because we got censored. I don't know if can I say that? Just in terms of doing ads. And so we're trying to figure that out. Okay, well, what word did I say that got flagged or pinged or whatever? So, but I think one of those would be that word, boost your immunity. But we're not going to be scientific about it and use words that say, oh my gosh, if you take my brand of vitamin C, it's going to do something. No, the number one thing I would do is go to sleep, is absolutely protect a bedtime routine. And that would be number one.
So can we say affirmative action? So right now, if you think if you're going to, how about Thanksgiving? I mean, my gosh, people are going to listen to this.
They're
It
going to
may
be
come
right
out on, it may come out on,
yeah.
when is Thanksgiving? It may come out on
Thursday,
Thanksgiving.
next Thursday.
Is it?
Yeah.
Holy smokes, this is going to come out next Thursday on Thanksgiving Day. Well.
Right. So they're already going to have made the decision.
Yeah.
Are we meeting or not meeting? And you're going to be driving, 2 hours across Kansas to see your family and be listening to this. And I would say, well, normally in times of celebration, we might go to bed later or have more wine or whatever. But this time around, I would say, if people can just say, hey, let's protect our routines and maybe sleep a little bit more or sleep in or do those kind of things. Don't push hard on the sleep. And I think you asked me one day, one of the questions of like, if you're going to be on a desert island, what's the number one thing you're going to, and I said, sleep.
Yeah.
And I would land on that again today, that most of us, especially if I'm going to that wartime routine or going out to be the doc in a COVID hospital, I would say protect the sleep, where you get your 8 hours in the bed at least.
But that is good, thinking about even holidays and stuff, coming up, that, yeah, you're right. That's generally when you think, we're going to stay up later watching a movie, playing a game. And this would be the time to, even if you beg out, which you and I are the ones that sometimes do that, and just say, hey guys, you have fun, but God love you, I'm going to go to sleep. And yeah, just from a personal standpoint.
And it sounds boring, it sounds trite, sounds routine. And that's, we talked about that this morning, that when it comes to the fact that your life is your medicine, meaning your lifestyle and the things that you do, or it's your poison. So if we are engaging in late nights, early mornings, get things done, push hard, play hard, all that kind of stuff, there's a time and a place for that. But right now, if you're going into the fray, if you're going into, a family meeting where you want to have your immune system boosted, then you're stealing away. That's not immune boosting. It's just not. Now, can we measure that? Is there a randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled trial that's going to say, holy cow, your immunity just went down by 7% because you went to bed after midnight? No. But do we know that it impacts it? Absolutely. So from a what can you do standpoint, I'd say just protect the routines, go to bed on time. Don't stress out down that pathway.
Here's one that I'm hesitant to say, because you and I both are so, we advocate so much a morning routine. I mean, I don't know anybody with any viable success these days who doesn't, look at a morning routine, get up early enough to give yourself some margin to set your day. And I would say best case, go to sleep or protect your routine so you can still do that. But right now I have admittedly been sleeping a little bit later as well, just with that thought of, I've been trying not to use an alarm and let my body sleep as long as it wants to, let my body decide how long it needs to sleep. And I've not been doing the 5 a.m. alarm clock going off, because I'm kind of looking at it, my body, I know it naturally wants about 8 hours of sleep. So if I do stay up a little bit later, sometimes I'll fudge it. Now, again, you and I are also self-employed. I'm more flexible with my schedule than you, because I can just bump everything back for the most part, especially with kids' school, out. But again, so if you're saying number one is guard your sleep on whichever end, both ends, but that's pretty great. If you're going to go into this thing, can you get a few days of whatever amount of sleep, an hour more? Can you not use an alarm, let your body? That'd be an interesting, just on sleep itself, is the take a couple days.
Experiment of taking even a week. So most people can't regulate after just a day or two and fall, because they're going to be still living the momentum of the life that they have been living. But even a week of just allow your body, but I would argue, try to go to bed, 9 or 10 rather than later and sleep in later, and see how much sleep you average, and then kind of set your clock and set your bedtime from there if you have to get up at a certain time. So yes, protecting the rhythm of sleep would be a very good thing to do for immunity forever. But then if you're saying, well, what about during COVID? I'd say, yeah, especially.
Especially. Okay, so I keep wanting to hit the things that you should not do, but I'm trying to stay on the things that you should. So what are some affirmative actions you would take in? So you're going to take in more sleep. You mentioned vitamin C.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's kind of top on everybody's mind of like, okay, because everybody asks me, or everybody will make the statement, okay, I know I should not smoke and not drink and not get stressed out and not, everybody skips right over all those, what I would say are the foundational things.
Mm-hmm.
But what can I take? What are the pills to put in my mouth? So let's just go there.
Okay.
And we will reiterate the deeper importance, I think, of your foundational lifestyle pieces. But let's go to that. Are there concrete things that you can do that are going to be proven to boost your immunity by taking certain supplements? And I would say there is no randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial that is going to bear this out, as far as I know. And let's just take vitamin C. Many, many, many studies have been done. And I would kind of say it's pretty much, I would argue, it's right down the middle with a tick towards the studies that favor it's probably helpful, it's not harmful,
Yeah.
and it's probably helpful. So when you're looking at, decades of data and lots of studies, but the problem is in the news agencies, or you'll see a headline that says recent study proves that vitamin C doesn't do anything to help prevent a cold. Well, then another study will come out and say recent studies say, and if you pull one study out like that, and people don't want to hear this in terms of, how do you read a journal article and how do you look at, well, what was the size, what was the power, what was the N, what dose did they use over how long, and did they control for things like smoking and stress and whatever else? But in my opinion, I think we can use that as an example to say it's probably helpful. Okay, so if people say, what are the things like that that are probably helpful, probably not harmful, and where does the emphasis lie? And that's where I'd say, okay, let's think about that.
I'm actually going to pause it there. Hold on a second. And this is the video that is, can I pause the video? Okay, I want to hit something on that though, because you as a doctor, and rightly so, talk about, okay, you talk about the tests over here and you're saying, is it absolute proof? And so often it's not. I remember talking with Stefan. So Stefan is in here in your True Life Medicine complex. He's a chiropractor, but his main thing is dry needling. So I have had very few, if any, treatments to an acute pain, like a musculoskeletal thing, that have been improved so rapidly than from his dry needling. It totally impressed me from being a lifetime chiropractic patient, whatnot. So he's doing this. This is early on when I first had him working on me some, and I'm going, how does it work? And he's trying to explain, but he got to some point and he goes, I don't know. It just does. For some reason, putting the needle into the muscle, it releases whatever, because I'm trying to get into the details. And I don't know, but did it help you? Well, yeah, it did. I see that with you a lot. To some degree, I'm looking at Dr. Randy James and, functional medicine protocols. And these are the things you're doing over however many decades you've been doing this now, and seeing people's improvement. That alone is enough, I think, for me and for most people, and say, okay, so based on that, even though you don't have the absolute proven test, would you increase vitamin C? And you go, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, good enough.
And even I like to say that if it is placebo, okay,
great.
Let's use it.
I do love that with you. If the placebo helps, then placebo on.
It's the word placebo has a negative connotation in our society, but I think buried within the mystery of the human condition and the body's ability to want to be well.
Well, then hit that. You and I talk about that. Okay. Is there some validity to the fact that you and I believe in our heads that we are living a healthy lifestyle? Uh-huh. We believe that we will not get sick almost all the time. And we're surprised if we do. How much does that belief bolster our immunity system and help us, even though there's not any tactical, tangible,
measurable
reality to
that's right ingredient. Versus the person who says, I got sick 3 times last year, I'm probably going to get sick 3 times this year.
Exactly. Oh, it's the holidays, I'm probably
it always happens to me.
I'm going to gain 10 pounds and get strep throat.
Yep,
it always happens to me. And what did they do to their psyche? It's we think we whatever we think. What's the quote? whether you think you can, think you can, and you're either way, you're right. I mean,
The,
just
the,
how
the
we,
self-fulfilling prophecy,
yeah.
okay, well, the placebo
So
effect.
attitude is one that we don't talk about that enough probably, but
So my sister and I, literally 10 minutes ago, we're talking about this because then, and we're like, well, do we deprive ourselves of the joy of getting together? And are we worse off because of that, more likely to get sick? Because we're saying, oh, darn, I really wish we could get together, but we can't. So whatever. So then you can also twist yourself around this axle because we also said, you know what? I can talk myself into this way. I can talk myself into that way. The good side over here or the downside, or the good side or the downside over here. You and I believe we have a tendency to say, I'm just going to move forward in faith, trusting my own authenticity, my own integrity, my own, because I also believe that God has good things in store.
Okay, there you're talking about, okay, we started with placebo, we're talking about attitude. We haven't talked about this in a show specifically, talked about our attitude. So to some degree, whatever makes you feel and think that you will have a stronger immunity, do that.
Do that.
And if you think that it might not, don't let that get into your psyche, because the truth is, when Thanksgiving comes, I will have some great wine. And I mean, I'm not falling under the table drunk with wine anyway. So am I going to curb it? I'll have a glass. I may have two. I'll have some pumpkin pie because I think that I'm strong.
That your celebration and you can withstand it. And it's not going to hurt you.
Whether I should think that or not, I actually do. That matters. But if I take that piece of pie or whatever and worry, I'd say there's your red flag. Don't do it just because of the worry. The worry itself has already started to hurt your immunity.
Sure.
So
we can, okay, but here we have to say, all right, now everybody's on the spectrum all over the place here, right? So to the person who's 50 pounds overweight and is saying, oh, so you're saying I can eat the pumpkin pie and not worry about it? And
I'm saying whatever you think about it is relevant. Let's just put
okay.
that as relevant.
Yes.
Now, that piece of pie is
an actual thing. It has an actual impact in your body.
And I was trying not to get to this, but that's one of the things you talk about, hurting your immunity, sugar. We'll have to come back. We'll have to come back to that. But you did point out, talk about affirmative action, that we also you need to look, everything that we're talking about today. If we had the list of here are the things that you do and don't do to help and not hurt your immunity, that if that list is over here, if you are uber healthy and you're uber healthy, maybe you have margin to fudge a little bit. If you're not, if you're compromised in any way, then you need to take that and then some. So yeah, if you right now are sick, if you're overweight, if you have whatever chronic conditions, then
these are real things. And so that's the spectrum. I keep flopping around with my arm. Everybody is on the spectrum in terms of being as well as they can be or less well. But like you said, how you think about where you are on the spectrum is relevant. The placebo effect is the most studied quote unquote drug that's out there, because every drug study compares to a placebo effect. And the placebo effect is amazingly strong. If you look at, famously Viagra had an effective rate of whatever, but the placebo effect of the placebo pill when it comes to that area is super strong. Super healthy. The medications for depression and anxiety, when the symptom is within your brain, then the placebo effect is quite strong. Well, all I'm saying is, okay, let's not bury our head in the sand and just, positive mental attitude ourselves out of a, if I just ate a bucket of sugar, but it matters. So we're back to that.
You know what? And to you talking to your sister about holidays and whatever, my first thought was fear, dealing with fear. If I have fear, I am lowering my immunity. But to care about other people, if I'm dealing with a family member or coworker or whatever, and they are in fear, out of my advocacy for their immunity system, I should cater to that some.
That's exactly what, but you can spin around. Even if my parents said, you know what, it's okay, we want everybody to come. But what about 6 months down the road and one of them is now not there? Well, that's a fear statement.
Yeah.
And is that a self-fulfilling statement, and you twist yourself into craziness. So we have to come back to
this is why everything we're doing is it's the list.
It's on the list,
They
and
all
it is
work
relevant.
together. No
That's
one
right.
thing by itself is
And
zero.
that's where at the end of the day, why you do what you do, your the why behind your what has to be your core foundational thing. That's our morning routine.
Yeah.
Who am I unto God, and then unto myself, and then my wife, and then my kids, and then probably my work, coworker, space, my mission. If every one of those I answer with as much authenticity and integrity as I can, and do the next best right thing, then I trust that it's going to be the best possible pathway forward.
Okay, I got another one that just occurred to me too. Just as we're talking about sleep, advocating for that is thinking about exercise.
We didn't do the other pills yet.
Oh, we're still on pills?
Well,
okay.
Weren't we?
I don't know.
That's where you jumped in with whatever after we said vitamin C. So I would do extra vitamin C. And then you say, well, what kind and how much? And I would say, we did a whole show on supplement ideas, but some extra vitamin C I would do. Yeah. I would do adequate vitamin D. What's adequate? It depends on how much sun you get. Depends on where you live in the world. Depends on what your lab studies are. But I would do some extra.
Okay. But I am going to nail you down on that. Okay. So you're going to take the midline, not the super healthy and, sun and whatever. But if you were just to
2,000
of what?
IUs of vitamin D.
2,000 IUs of vitamin D. So folks, if you have to look at your bottle. What
you have to look at your bottle. And on vitamin C, what I do on days where I'm regularly taking my stuff, it just so happens that if I take 2 capsules of the kind of vitamin C that I take, it's 1.5 grams. And I do that twice a day. So 1.5 in the morning, 1.5 at night. And that's kind of on the high middle.
Was the vitamin
dose.
D once a day?
Once a day vitamin D.
2,000. Okay.
2,000. Right. I would do omega-3s. So the amount of studies that
that's
are
fish oil. For us layman folks.
And there I would be very picky about get a high, reputable, good quality source. And I would do at least, so I think for an adult, a bottom number would be 1 gram of the EPA DHA. So those are the specific omega-3s in there. If you look on the back of the bottle, not 1 gram total, but specifically EPA and DHA, totaling 1 gram. I do that twice a day. Okay. All right. Now that's me normally. That's what I'm doing in normal everyday life. So if I'm going into the fray, like I'm going into the ruckus, I'm going to the front lines where the hospital stuff is going on. Honestly, I'm going to double what I just said.
Okay. And I've been sitting here looking, it was episode 18 of the show here, where we talked specifically about supplements.
So what I just said was the recommendation for kind of normal daily, me as a doctor, but if I'm going to the front lines, I would take extra.
Okay. And I wanted to pull out too, as people are, and we are going to be talking about supplements more and more we're going to be advocating some specific supplements in the coming weeks. But on that, when you look at, if you had, if this is your grandma, this is my thing to you, your grandma, she's on a fixed income. She doesn't have much money. You're saying, grandma, you need these supplements, but where would you say here, buy the top notch? Don't fudge here, maybe not as big a deal. Because
three top notch ones I would not fudge on would be a quote unquote good multivitamin. And
so not a cheap Walmart, been on the shelf for 3 months.
Right. What's the definition of good? All that, and
higher quality, which
we'll debate. And like you say, we're going to talk about in some coming shows, but I would say a good multivitamin, a good fish oil, where you can trust the sourcing of it.
Which again, you did say that earlier. It's often listed more so these days as omega-3. It doesn't say fish oil anymore. I don't know why.
Well, that's the point, is you don't want just a smattering of this oil, that oil, this oil. You want EPA and DHA, which are the
DHA. Okay, so they can go, if you're going to GNC, EPA and DHA, omega-3 fish oil. So high quality high quality fish.
And then the probiotic.
Yeah.
And we didn't mention that one, but I would add that into there as it's one of the basics if you're going into the fray. And then should you take a little bit more? And I would say yes.
And on the probiotic, I used to think if it's high quality, it's only the refrigerated kind. Not always the case. They do have high quality shelf stable now.
They do. Yes.
Okay.
So the vitamin D, I think, is a little bit less dependent upon the high quality nature of it. The ones that we use are combined with K2. And then what kind of K you're getting in there might be a little bit more, brand specific if you have a better brand. So a K2D3, 2,000 at least, maybe 5,000. If you're going into a place where you think I am going to get exposed, like if we're going on an airplane and you're going to do a 6-hour flight, then I would do some extra stuff. And then, okay, what about you see just a long list of antiviral XYZ. And over the course of the last 6 months, I think quercetin got up really high. N-acetylcysteine got up really high. Curcumin got up really high as, hey, this might be helpful. And so if it's me and I'm going into the fray, then I'm going to take along curcumin. And I'm going to take along N-acetylcysteine, NAC, NAC. So
spell it literally if people are out there.
N-acetylcysteine, but just do NAC, NAC.
Right.
NAC, and if we're going into the fray, 900 milligrams 3 times a day. And if I'm doing curcumin, which is pulled from turmeric, the spice, then I would do 1,000 milligrams twice a day. And so like if we're going to the family gathering and you're going to meet with Uncle Joe and he doesn't care about anything and he's probably sick and he's just going to cough on you and laugh about it, then, you're going into the fray. You're going to get exposed. Those are the things that I would do with sleep, with your normal exercise routine. I wouldn't do the marathon.
I was just going to say exercise that if you're going to do that, my thought was, my tendency is going to go, it's the holidays, man. I got more time. I'm going to go out and do a 2-hour killer thing. I can
if
come
you
back,
did, then I would recover
and not go into the family gathering or whatever depleted. Because I have done that. Man, back in my pro cycling days, you do a long race and afterwards, sometimes you get sick easy.
You go to the family and you brag about it.
Yeah, exactly. And get sick. Yeah, because I'm open. So there are some things to put in.
What do you keep away?
Because my first, especially if we're talking holidays and family gatherings, is sugar. That's when you overindulge sugar. And I'm not always sure if you feel like it's a correct statement, but I've always been under the feeling of, man, one of the things I can do to really deplete my immunity and open the door for illness is a lot of sugar.
I would agree. Oh. So I've changed the statement. I would say is sugar, you would die without it, glucose, carbohydrates, but it is a poison. Yeah. And so is oxygen. Oxygen burns, right? Like if you expose a flame to oxygen, there's going to be an explosion. So the body has a very, very tightly controlled biochemical pathway for oxygen and glucose. Yeah. And if you overdo it, here's the analogy. It's like if you drive your car to the gas station, you fill up your gas tank and you do it in a normal way, and then you go drive for however long, that's the way the car is designed. But here's what we're doing with our bodies. We pull up to the gas tank and it's called a meal. And then we go and drive away, but we only used half of our gas tank. And then we're pulling up to the gas station again. It's another meal and we put in the same amount. So we overflow our gas tank. So imagine if you're like, okay, I just bought 30 gallons of gas, only 15 will fit. And the body's like, okay, well, we have to do something with the extra stuff. But in your car, it's like you just soaked up your carpet in the back of your truck. Yeah. And it is poison. It's great in your gas tank and in your engine, but over here it stinks. And if it touches another inflammatory thing like exercise or like a virus, it is highly flammable. And if people can get that in their head and think, oh my gosh, so all this extra and visceral adiposity tissue, fat, vat, is it flammable? It is the very definition of inflammation. It is the very definition of weakening your immune system. No. That is what it is doing. So if you go and overindulge on alcohol or sugar or pretty much anything, but in particular these things, or even like you just said, if you overindulge in exercise, you are now creating an inflammatory state, you have unboosted your immune system.
Well, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, just that. I mean, that is the idea of coming together is overindulging, and we talk about Thanksgiving and Christmas is overindulging, and we are taxing our system. So if you're at home alone, just with your family, maybe not as much of a risk, but if you're going to be with new people and a new environments, again, exposed, man, it's just a bad time to overindulge. And then if you're going to overindulge anyways, what's the worst thing? Because my thought is, I don't know if this is fair to say, if I'm going to go back, even if it's not overindulge, but man, I'm going to eat a little bit more. Would I be better off to have another slice of turkey and a little gravy as opposed to another slice of pie?
Yes. And that's where you and I are so grateful. Like we sit out on the deck and we look at our Brussels sprouts, and I am so grateful that I love them.
Yeah.
We had them last night.
I did too. I was on a getaway, man. I could have any food I wanted to. And I had onions and Brussels sprouts and trout. Yeah. And some cheesecake. Okay. We had some cheesecake and some wine.
Last night, we sat down to dinner, and we always watch around Thanksgiving. We always watch Lord of the Rings with the kids. And
yeah, we haven't got started yet.
It's mahi-mahi and nice. Rice and a stir fry. And I put Brussels sprouts in this stir fry. And I just kept saying, this is so good.
Yeah.
This is so good. And I would rather have another helping of that even than XYZ. If it's my favorite dessert, cheesecake, ice cream, or something like that, we'll have some. But at Thanksgiving, it is such a joy to be able to eat those kind of things, and to overindulge there. Yes. So if people can have that mentality going into it, that we are going to indulge on and be thankful for the things that the actual original pilgrims or whoever did that was thankful for, which was basically just sustenance. Like we stayed alive. To overindulge there would be a better thing.
Yeah.
And then to have, yes, your dessert, but don't overindulge there if you are truly concerned about your immunity.
If you're truly, yeah. So again, the overindulgence, and again, we're in blue zones that we talk about so often where, I know my family is generally, we're going to go, last year we did the turkey trot. We actually did the official race. It's canceled, of course, this year. Yeah. So we're going to hike to the lake and do that first off. So probably won't even do breakfast. Then we'll do the lunch, but then I know the kids will want to be on the trampoline, or somebody will want to play Frisbee golf, weather allowing or whatever. And that keeps me from overeating, because it feels terrible to go out there and jump and run around. So that's helpful. But okay, so we got that. So sugar is pretty bad, kind of top of the list. Overeating and taxing ourselves is going to lower us. And another one I thought of, especially when we're talking about holiday stuff. That wasn't the only point, but coronavirus. But back to our mentality, is just stress. And if you're going to be going into a situation and you're going to be stressing and anxiety, you are compromising yourself. You are by proxy compromised.
And so many of you and I, again, we're in a blue zone of gratefulness because my family doesn't stress me out.
Mine either.
It's a joy to get together. So if people are saying, holy cow, we're going to argue about politics, we're going to argue about whatever else, I would say, well, if you are truly concerned about boosting your immune system, then it might be a time to not meet.
I'm going to post this early so people get it before Thanksgiving, because it's just good stuff to know. Even that, if they know that, oh my gosh, we have to go by and see Uncle Bob, that guy stresses me out, then either don't do it or make it short.
Pull the coronavirus card.
That's true too.
We're a little under the weather. Uncle Bob, we love you so much. We don't want to.
You know what? Everybody just email Randy at whatever. I'll give you
a doctor's note on letterhead.
You have coronavirus. Yeah, that'd be good. No, that's another one. Again, just to look at those things that are going to minimize us, reduce our capacity. And I put stress up there really high.
Yeah. And we are in the middle of the political situation, the Colorado just today, our guys group, we couldn't meet at our normal coffee shop because it closed.
No seating.
And that's stress, right? So the kids being at home, school schedule, all of that is stress. We have to recognize the fact that, and we've talked about stress on a number of occasions. So again, it is your stress response. So the human mind can rise above that. And you can actually go meet Uncle Bob and let him talk about whatever political things, and you can choose to have a different stress response. Yeah. But again, to focus on what your goals are, if you're trying to protect yourself and boost your immune system, then don't allow your brain to go down that other pathway. And if that means choosing not to meet with those people, okay. If it means choosing to becoming the kind of person that can think differently, that's even better.
Yeah, it makes me think about guarding. Let's say you've got a spouse that doesn't really want to go to the family thing because it stresses her. That might be a good time to advocate for that instead
Yeah.
of pushing
Right.
to go in there.
Yeah. So we're back again, and it's probably a good point to land on of saying your morning routine of how you set up your day, of what motivates you, the why behind your what, your core belief system, and then with as much honesty and integrity as you can to answer these questions. And then I would say, go to bed on time, say your prayers, get up, take your vitamins, eat your food, go do your normal exercise, and then go do what you do and be confident.